Ma'am, well, it's good to have everybody with us tonight. I'm sorry for the haphazardness at the beginning. Couple of us forgot. And even after I was just reminded yesterday or today even, I got home and got busy with getting home and forgot all about it. So I do apologize for that. But we'll go ahead and get started. And the first question that we have for the ladies is, how did you become a caregiver?
Well, with me, it started a long time ago. Jerry's mom, she had cancer. Like the second year after we were married in 78 and she got cancer and she died in 1980. So we did a lot in the evenings with her because Jerry's dad worked second shift. So we would go over and sit with her and be with her. And then with my mom, it was in 2005. She had her family had heart trouble. So she was one of like 19 kids, and they all had heart problems. So she didn't last too long when she got really bad. But it was my dad and my sister and her husband and me and Jerry and Sarah. Sorry about that. Everything's falling out of my purse. We're leaving our phone up on it. Sorry. So that part was with my mom. And then we started again with Jerry's stepmom. And that was, it first started with her that I was just going over to the house and helping with daily chores and going to the grocery store for them, taking Ellen to get her nails done. And that lasted for about probably 3 years. And then after that, in 2020, she developed, we don't really know what happened, but she just lost her ability to walk. And she couldn't stand. And so it happened in July. So they put her on hospice to get her into the hospital right away because it was COVID. And so that was from 2020, and we had her until last year. She passed away in April Fool's Day last year. And we had 24-hour care that we were providing her between the 4 or 5 of us that was doing that. And we lasted with her for about 3 years, 3.5 years. And then it continued with Jerry's dad, and he is currently, he has dementia and heart failure, and what else does he have? Yeah, the congestive heart failure, and his legs are swelled so bad. So we attempted to take him to church yesterday, which was an ordeal. It took like 15 minutes just to get him in the car because we couldn't get his legs to bend and he was out of breath. And so that's how it all started with us. And I don't know, do you have anything else, Dad?
I just was along for the ride.
Of course you were, Sarah. You were the moral support, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, Jeannie, that you've had a lifetime of caregiving with one family member or another, and I know that that's a heavy burden to carry all the time. And I want to say that I appreciate you taking care of your family members and being willing to step up and do what needs to be done, because there's some family members that don't really want to do that, and that's hard. That's hard. Oh, my next question is, what are some of the challenges that you faced as a caregiver, and how did you overcome them?
We probably, we had help with Delmas and Ellen. And part of it was we had like 3 or 4 different caregivers that would come and spend the daytime with them. And a lot of them would have different ideas on how to do things. So then you would have the girls, well, this is the way I do it, and this is the way I do it. And so there would be arguments going through there, and we just had to just keep going. So
Were those caregivers that came in, were they like people you hired or family members?
They were friends from the church. They were ladies from each of our churches. Two of the three were, and then one was a family friend of Grandma Ellen's son. So we paid them, but they weren't like professional caregivers that like you pay to come stay with people.
Gotcha. So that made the caregiving even tougher, having to deal with arguments among the caregivers. That made your job even harder than what it already was.
Yeah, and they also, so like she said, grandma and grandpa had 24-hour care from the time grandma was put on hospice in 2020. So it was mom, my uncle Gary, my uncle Lowell, and then one of the ladies from our churches who would spend the night in the evenings. So they were there in the evenings, they were there during the day, just depending on the schedule. So it was balancing everybody's schedules, balancing the stress load. Like she said, people didn't like the way each other cared for them.
Not always, but it was.
But it did happen.
It did happen, yeah.
So those were challenging things. And like many things, when family is working on circumstances and situations, the stress of that would cause conflict between the siblings. And so it wasn't always easy, to say
Yeah.
the
So
least.
how did you guys overcome that? How did you deal with that?
There was a lot of what is that? High intense discussion. I guess was the safest way to say. There would be times where they would just talk to tell messages of what was happening. For us, for our family, the three of us, it just became a matter of, we're going to do our best given what we can provide, given our commitments to the church and with WAC and things like that. And so we provided the best we could, and we tried not to take it personal when people would get upset.
Yeah. That's difficult, to say the least.
Yes.
And it's hard to not get upset, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to not take it personal.
Right.
Because it's, your family that you're caring for, and that's hard. What is something you wish that you had known before becoming a caregiver?
That there's no end to it.
Hmm.
It can last for a long time, and it continues to last, and but there's no timeline,
Mhm.
so you got to be prepared for that.
Right.
With my grandma Ruth, my mom's mom, she was in the Cleveland Clinic, and they told us, she would be on hospice, and they didn't expect her to live long. And it was just less than a month.
Yeah.
It was less than a month that we had once we got her home with her. But with grandma, it was 3 years of intense 24/7 bed-bound caregiving. So she was,
The last year was.
well, yeah, but I mean, she couldn't get up and walk around from 2020 on. And so there you have to do a lot more physical work than you've ever wanted or thought you could do. But that one was hard because like she said, we had no idea the time frame, like how long it would last, or the hospice nurses would tell us, oh, she doesn't look good, she won't be around much longer, and then
Mhm.
she would bounce back in a week. And
She was the Energizer Bunny.
yes.
Bounced right
Yes, she literally kept going and going and going. And so that was really challenging because you're also emotionally tied to saying goodbye all of those times. And then I'll tell you a funny story. I was at work, and mom and dad called and said that grandma had gone unresponsive, and she had been like that for a couple hours, and they didn't think that she would last much longer. And so I left work and I came to the house, and we were sitting there, and grandma was unresponsive for at least a couple hours while I was there, and we were singing and just sitting there with her and stuff. And her neighbor walks in that they had these very wonderful neighbors who, for probably the last 10 years of their lives at that house, they would buy them pizza every Friday night. When they would buy their family pizza, they would buy my grandparents medium pizza every Friday night. So they came over to say goodbye, and Susie leaned down and kissed grandma on the head and said, "I love you." And I'm not joking. Grandma opened her eyes, said, "I love you too," sat up and said, "I'm hungry, what's to eat?"
Oh
And this
my
woman
goodness.
had been unresponsive for like 9 hours. Like,
Oh
it was
my goodness.
ridiculous. And I was like, if she could get up, she would be Peter's mother-in-law right now. Like, that is literally what just happened. It was crazy.
Oh, well, I know this isn't one of our pre-planned questions, but how did you deal with that emotionally, with all the times that you were preparing to tell her goodbye and then she would rally back? How did you deal with that emotionally?
It was hard. You wanted to honor each time because you didn't know if it would be the last. I remember. I mean, they put her on hospice, and I joked with the lady because they said, well, some people graduate from hospice and they get better and they don't have to be on it. And I'm like, if anybody will do it, it will be her. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. And if she could have got up, I think she probably would have beat the hospice graduation. But like I said, you want to honor each time saying goodbye to them. And I remember every time we would leave on Christmas, I would say, this is probably the last Christmas we're going to have with her. And then we got 3 more. Like, it was hard. But we wanted to love her and honor her. And we're still doing that with grandpa. I mean, we have no idea. He's not gotten to the point where he's like unresponsive or anything like that. He's still active and forgetful. And so that comes with its own things, but we just kept going, just kept going, taking it one day at a time, and would be grateful. But I'm not gonna lie, the last 2 years of grandma was really, really hard to watch because she got so bad. And I would pray all the time that God would take her because she didn't want to be here. She had her mind up until probably the last week. Like, I mean, she was fully aware of what was happening. She hated the fact that people had to change her diaper. Like, she was very aware of it, and she did not, like, she would cry all the time because she didn't want us to have to spend all that time doing that. And so it was hard.
Yeah. 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 So, what is something that you've learned through caregiving?
Well, I learned that the body can do a lot with a little because, I mean, grandma, there would be times where she wouldn't, like, she would just drink water and she would still last for a long, long time after that. But I think, the Bible verse where it says, honor your father and your mother and your days will be long. I mean, I look at both of them and I see that God is honoring that promise. Like, their lives are very long and they're lasting a long time. And I'm sure it's because of they're honoring their parents. And I think that for me, I've learned and am continuing to learn that we have to show the love of Christ in every way we can. And if that means doing things that we don't like, in this whole time, I would do a lot for grandma, but for grandpa physically, I have stepped back and not done, like, I didn't take him to the bathroom or anything like that. And when he got put in the when he got put in the assisted living place, one time I was there by myself, and he was like, "I go to the bathroom," and I was like, "Okay, let me page the nurse. Let's wait for the nurse." And he's like, "No, I've got to go to the bathroom now." And so I'm like, I take him into the bathroom, and I told my parents, I was like, I made the decision that I could handle seeing it from the back, but I couldn't handle it seeing from the front. So I stood behind him without holding him, and you learn to do a lot.
You do. What
Yeah.
about you, Jeannie? Is there something specific that you've learned through caregiving?
Um, well, with Dalmas, it's, you will do what you have to do. You know, and he said that all the time, he would say, I hate that you guys have to do this for me.
Mm,
But, you do what you have to. And, one of the ladies from church, she told me when we decided to put him in the assisted living, he's only been there a month. And, she said, well, God will be with him there just like he was at home.
mm,
So, now Delmas, his memory it's gone. I mean, you could be there with him and a half hour later or 15 minutes later, he doesn't know what he's done or
Who's been to
who's
visit
been
him?
there. He just doesn't know, but, he's still going.
yeah.
So,
I guess we all learned that we can do what needs to be done, whether we know how or like it or are comfortable with it. If it has to be done,
Right.
maybe
Right.
we're the ones that has to do it. So what are some strategies for managing caregiving stress and preventing burnout? Or I think they call it respite care. What were some things that you guys did um, to take a break and to relieve some of the stress?
um, everybody would still get their little vacations when they had a chance. Some would get a lot more than others, but, everybody would, get some time off. We did have Ellen in, they have a co-backer house where you can take them and, they can stay there for a week. So with Ellen, we did that twice. And it's just like a little hotel, for hospice patients. And she was there for her 90th birthday.
Oh.
And they, took care of her just like she was the queen. Um, and during COVID, the first time she was in there, well, actually, the time they first put her in there, she was only allowed one visitor, and it was Sarah. Because she was the one that could go right after work and stay with her for 3 or 4 hours, and then, but, they would only let one person come, and it had to be the same person.
Mm,
So, but yeah, we just each just got a little bit of break once in a while. That's about it. At least we had help, so it wasn't just one person doing it all.
right, right.
So,
That's good.
The one thing about respite care with grandma was she loved it when she was there, but she hated the idea of having to go there.
Mm,
So while, like with the hospice that she was on, they allowed her to go there once every month and a half, wasn't it? It was like once every month and a half. And in 3 years, she went twice because she did not want to go and you couldn't convince her. And then my grandpa was still alert enough that he could be like, no, she ain't gotta go. We're fine exactly how we are. And so that was hard because when she was there, we could all get a break at the same time, minus
right.
somebody staying with grandpa. But I mean, we made it work.
Yeah, yeah. Have you found any resources available for those who need financial or emotional support?
We hadn't had to use anything like that. My grandpa had, they were, very thrifty in their livelihood. And so, he had enough money set aside for rainy days that never came that we could, pay for. We didn't have to get anything other than what hospice provided, for us.
with him being in the assisted living, of course, it's all self-pay.
Mhm.
So they don't provide any, except for hospice, they do, he's still on hospice. So they will still come out and see him, the nurses and doctors and stuff, but, as far as the price of it, it's self-pay and you have to do that on your own. There's no resources for that, at least not where he is.
Right.
But yeah.
So what have you learned spiritually through your time of caregiving? And is there any special scripture that you depend on?
I had a couple scriptures that I would go to, and one was Psalms 28:7. And it's the Lord is my strength and shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore, my heart greatly rejoices, and with my song I will praise him. And then my other one was Psalms 28:14. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thy heart. Wait, and I say on the Lord. So those are the two that I would go to.
One of the things that I have a daily calendar at work that like has like a little tiny devotion with a Bible verse. And a couple weeks ago, one of them really struck me, and it's something that I didn't see it over the last 3 years, but I've seen us living it. And it was talking about how the best thing that in life is the love of God, that the love that God has provided for us, and the best way we can honor God is by sharing His love with others. And so I really think that our family, both the three of us, but also the extended family, have really honored my grandparents through the love that we've shown them when it was at our own expense, when it was at our physical, emotional relationship, all of those things. But the best thing in life is God's love, and we've had the opportunity to share that with our loved ones.
That's great. Jeannie, you said you were married in 1978,
Yeah.
and when did you start caregiving?
Probably 79.
Oh my goodness. So you were still a newlywed when caregiving began for you.
Yeah, because she died in March of 80. So she wasn't around very long after we got married.
Did that scenario present any challenges, being a newlywed and having to give so much of your time in caregiving?
Well, because his dad was there with her during the daytime and we only had to do the evenings. Of course, we still worked and everything. We both worked full time. We just made it work, and we just did it.
Yeah. That would, I mean, marriage in itself is hard enough, let alone an extra stress like, having to caregive, and that is just a challenge in itself. And I've just been sitting here thinking about that. Oh my goodness, you were only married a year before you started in with your caregiving. So, you're a special lady. That's all I got to say.
We were still kids.
Didn't know any better, huh?
You were 19.
We were 18 and 19, so.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's all of the questions that I have for Sarah and Jeannie. Does anybody who's watching have anything